Yeah. So here, the first topic that we are going to discuss is district cooling system. Okay. So again, here I've made it in a question format. Read the question, tell me which one do you think would be the most logical answer. Okay, 3, B, D, A, B. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's see here. Now, this one is an important topic, district cooling system. Why it is important? Because a state government is trying to implement the same. Okay, that is the state of Tamil Nadu is trying to go for a new technique to deal with climate change, right? So here, this is basically a centralized cooling system. Okay, so the aim is to minimize the burden on electricity grids, and it is a centralized cooling system where what you're doing is basically distributing chilled water. Okay, so how are you getting chilled water? Basically, you are trying to generate chilled water through renewable energy. Okay, energy efficient technologies. By that, you are trying to get chilled water and then supply it to multiple buildings through underground insulated pipes. Okay, so what is the intent here? You will basically be using this chilled water for air conditioning or industrial process cooling here. Okay, so when we talk about district cooling system here, we are talking about what? A centralized system first. Okay, and it is the state of Tamil Nadu which is trying to do the same for government buildings, hospitals, educational campuses. Okay, now the private companies are also encouraged to develop their own district cooling system. Now let us see their benefits. That is what is important to us. See, this district cooling system has been mentioned even in a UN report here, where they have mentioned especially that the for India to fight climate change, the government, the state government should adopt the same. Okay, they should adopt a district cooling system, right? So here, what is the function here? So a central chilled water plant generates chilled water using energy efficient technologies here. Okay, and wherever available, renewable energy. This chilled water is then pumped through a distribution network of insulated underground pipes. Okay, now here those are then used in ACs where the heat transfer happens, and finally the heated water again is pumped back to the plant itself. Okay, so here you can see the warm water returns from the heat exchanger via distribution networks back to the centralized chilled water plant. Fine. Now, what is the added benefits of the same? So one is reducing greenhouse gas emissions from heating and cooling. Okay, so currently what is happening on individual capacities, ACs are working. Okay, so they want to ensure it is done on a centralized manner. Now, improving local air quality by reducing fossil fuel consumption and reducing peak power demand also for cooling. And the most unique point that you will find is reducing urban heat island effects by centralizing cooling process. Okay, so they will reduce the heat from buildings, all of it, thereby tackling the issue of urban heat islands. Okay, so there are many added benefits to the same. And when a state government is trying to implement the same, this becomes very important. Now, based on the content that you know, now tell me which statement would be correct here. Okay, so here it is A. Okay, so remember this aspect, it is not decentralized. Okay, we are talking about a centralized cooling system, that aspect. Fine. So if this is clear, we come to another initiative, which is a very important initiative. Now this one I think you might have already seen in your test, right? But this I've again brought it. The reason is it's an EU-led initiative and this has been specifically mentioned in UNEP. Okay, so I missed this in the previous class. So that is why I brought it in the current affairs, right? So when we talk about colors initiative, you should know the purpose, who is leading the initiative. These two aspects, if you can understand, that is more than sufficient. Okay, so here it is a partnership between IUCN and European Union. And it was recently, this initiative was recently announced in CBD, right? So what is the purpose? The purpose is to promote the right of indigenous people and local communities. Okay, so this aspect of it has become it is very unique. And if you have given the test, you might have understood also. Just by seeing colors initiative, you will not understand the purpose. It's very unique, right? So focus on that aspect. Fine. Okay, come to the next one. Yeah, so the government basically recently launched something known as an anti-pesticide bodysuit for the farmers, so as to protect the farmers from harmful effects of pesticide application, right? So it is termed as Kisan Kavach. Okay, so here what you should focus on, yeah, what is the purpose here? And it is first in class technology to protect farmers' health and developed by this much is sufficient here. Okay, so developed by, and what is the purpose? To deactivate pesticides upon contact. So first of its kind, very unique, mentioned in your PIB, so I have covered the same. Fine. Chalo. Come to the next one. Achha, this one is what is the most important topic for today's class. That is trachoma. Okay. Very important from your uh, from your prelims point of view. Okay, so again, read the question, try solving, tell me what do you think would be the answer here. Okay. 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 2. One, 1 and 2. Okay, 2. Okay, 2 and 3. Okay, all right. Uh, Let us see this one by one. Okay, trachoma. Now, why it is important? Because India has now been officially declared free from trachoma by World Health Organization. Very important news. You're supposed to prepare it thoroughly. Read PIB articles on the same. Okay, I've covered everything that is there in PIB, but I will still advise you to read more articles on this topic. Okay. So here it is 2024, which is recently declared free from trachoma. But India was declared free from infective trachoma many years later itself. Okay, many years earlier. That is in 2017 itself, India was declared free from infective trachoma. Okay, so remember that aspect also. Now, when you talk about trachoma, what is it? It is basically an eye infection where we are talking about bacterial infection, right? And it is one of the major causes of preventing blindness worldwide. Now, what is the most important fact that you should note here is who does it, who is more susceptible to this. Okay, so here the infective stages of trachoma, they are basically children are more vulnerable to the same. Okay, so remember that aspect also. It is not adults, it is children. Okay. Now it is caused by infection with the bacterium, chlamydia and trachomatis. Okay. So just go through this. Bacterial infection, India officially declared free of it. Infective trachoma in the year 2017. Right. Now, what are the primary causes of spread of this infection? That is also important because uh, 10 years back, 15 years back, this kind of questions was very common. Okay, the mode of transmission of a disease. Okay, so you have to prepare along those lines also, right? So the primary cause of trachoma infection, it is eye secretion of infected individuals. So how does it happen? Close physical contact, sharing towels, house flies, coughing or sneezing. Okay, so that is the primary source. But at the same time, there are certain environmental risk factors also. Okay, that is poor hygiene, overcrowded living conditions, water scarcity, and inadequate latrines or sanitation facilities. So these are basically also promoting transmission of trachoma. Okay, so both primary factor, environmental factor, very important from your prelim standpoint. Now, the trachoma spread in India. So here, this is directly taken from PIB, what government has mentioned. Okay, so that is in 2017, you can see India declared free from infective trachoma. Okay, so this was because the prevalence was only 0.7 percentage, but now in 2024 we have achieved overall. Fine. Now here, India's journey to eradicate trachoma, this is also mentioned here. So India has launched multiple initiatives. So one of the major initiative is trachoma control project. Okay, so focus on this also, and initiative led by, okay, WHO and UNICEF, because this is mostly affecting children. Okay, so focus on that. Okay, finally, trachoma, it was integrated into the National Program for Control of Blindness and Visual Impairment. Okay, so 2017 declared free, 2024 WHO validated the same, right? So what are the initiatives here? So one is a national program here, and the most important, that is, here we are talking about adoption of, uh, we were able to achieve the same because of something known as safe strategy, okay, of WHO. So again, this corresponds to what? If it is asked, again, it is corresponding to the main disease trachoma. Okay. So here, adoption of WHO safe strategy, and finally the project itself. Okay, National Trachoma Control Program, support of WHO and UNICEF. Okay, now here when we talk about safe strategy of WHO, what does it mean? Yeah, we are talking about surgery, antibiotics, facial cleanliness, and environmental improvement. This is what we are focusing on when we talk about safe. Fine. I hope this is clear. Now, when did WHO adopt the same? Yeah, adopted this strategy in 1993. And finally, in 1996, WHO launched an initiative known as Get 2020. Okay, so again, this corresponds to trachoma itself. That is global elimination of trachoma by year 2020. So obviously, they were not able to achieve that objective. But still, because we have achieved that objective, so you should know the same. Okay, so the aim is to support countries to implement the safe strategy. Okay, so here this is important, safe strategy, WHO, and the important program, National Trachoma Program, initiative of which organization? WHO and UNICEF. Fine. So focus on these parameters. Now, based on the content that you know, tell me which statements would be correct here. You have to be very exactly. Okay, statement one, when you commonly found, it is given, you have to focus on the same commonly found. Is it so? Okay, so that is where specific focus has been given on most commonly found. Okay, yeah, so here the answer is basically 2 and 3. The first is wrong. Fine. So if this is clear, very important topic, please read it again. Okay, the next one is Chemical Weapons Convention. Now, why we are focusing on it? We see the news aspect of it, but read the question. Tell me which statements do you think might be correct here? 1, 2, 4, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2 and 4, 1 and 2. Okay, we are getting different answers. Okay. Okay, so let's see here. First, see the content and then we'll discuss. Okay. So why are we covering this? Because yes, something known as Indian Chemical Council, right? So they won the 2024 OPCW, the Hague Award. Okay. So what is the purpose here? Again, to promote chemical safety and compliance with the Chemicals Weapons Convention. Okay, so it was recently awarded in the 29th session of Conference of State Parties of OPCW, that is Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Okay, now here see, this is the first time that such an award has been recognized for the efforts of a chemical industry body here. Okay, so that is important here. And what you should focus on is the initiative aspect of it. So here when we talk about Indian Chemical Council, we are basically from the prelim standpoint, we are focusing on two major aspects here. Okay, the first aspect is a major initiative known as Nicer Globe Initiative. Okay, so Nicer Globe Initiative is an initiative of Indian Chemical Council, and here the aim is what? Aim is ensuring that there is the chemical transportation that is happening. It is highly safe in India, and at the same time, real-time monitoring and emergency of transportation of chemicals. Okay, so remember this aspect, Nicer Globe Initiative. Okay, initiative of. Okay, so this is a very important initiative mentioned in the original website also of Chemical Weapons Convention. Okay, and the second one is responsible care program here. Okay, so here also the aim is chemical safety itself. Okay, so remember the two initiatives, Nicer Globe Initiative and Responsible Care Program. Both of them related are the initiatives of Indian Chemical Council and deal with promoting chemical safety. Okay, now apart from this, the Indian Chemical Council is the national body for all branches of chemical industry, both organic and inorganic, and it has facilitated industry compliance and efficient e-filing for chemical declarations that you have. Okay, so it also issues certificates of origin to exporters. If you want to export chemicals, then again, this is provided, right? It is the one which authorizes industries to issue or to export the chemicals, right? So here, a very important body that you should know, it has been recently awarded, important. Now, coming to the organizations that are there, Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. So here, this is the implementing body of CWC, Chemical Weapon Convention. Okay, so headquarters Hague, Netherlands, and it is authorized to conduct inspections. Fine. Now, what is more important is the Chemical Weapon Convention. Okay, so it is the one which prohibits the use of chemical weapons in its entirety, especially if we are talking about taking human lives. Okay, so here CWC is the one which is responsible for the same. Okay, so use of chemical weapon, large scale deployment of chemical weapons, stockpiling of chemical weapons, all of it has been prohibited under this convention, even transfer of the same. Okay, only for research or medical purposes you can use. Okay, so that is clearly given, mentioned. Okay, so Chemical Weapon Convention came in force in 1997. And what about this statement? India is an original signatory to this convention. This one would be actually true. Okay, this is a correct statement. So you have to know the same. Okay, so Secretariat is in Hague. And finally, what you should know is the two important provisions. That is, what does it expect its member states to follow? Okay, so here you can see member states must prohibit the use of chemical weapons, destroy all the existing chemicals that they have, and do it in front of OPCW supervision. Okay, so that is clearly given in the convention itself. So that is why you have to, it might seem like an extreme statement, but once you have signed the same, you're supposed to uh, destroy your existing stockpiles, right? At the same time, the second one is CWC prohibits the use of any toxic chemical as a weapon, especially if you are talking about human death, if the intent is human death. Okay, so even if the chemical is not classified as a controlled substance, still it prohibits. So again, this is again a unique statement. So this also you should know. Okay, so if it is being used with the intent to cause harm to humans, by and large, even if it is not mentioned, even if it is not classified as a controlled substance, still this has been prohibited. Okay, so both these are very unique statements you should know. Fine. So here, Chemical Weapons Convention, acha, which is the national authority responsible for implementing CWC in India? It is NACWC itself. Okay, so the name itself is National Authority Chemical Weapons Convention. Okay, that is the name that is there. Okay, so it is the one which ensures we are collaborating with the Chemical Weapons Convention, or the we are following the objectives of them, right? So here we have seen Chemical Weapon Convention, we have seen OPCW, that is the one which implements the provisions of Chemical Weapon Convention, and we have also seen the relevance of Indian Chemical Council. Okay, so two important initiatives, Nicer Globe initiative and Responsible Care program. Fine. So now, based on the content that you know, which statements are correct here? Okay. So here you can see this is a very unique statement and it is true. Okay, so that is why you have to focus on that aspect. Okay. So if this is clear. Okay, now this one I think already was there in the test. Tell me what was the answer for this one? A very important topic. Okay. Already I've asked it in one of the tests. That is WIPO Treaty on Intellectual Property, Genetic Resources, and Associated Traditional Knowledge. Okay, you remember this aspect, very important. Okay, this is basically why it is very important, because intellectual property important. At the same time, if it is an initiative which India has uh, fought for, then this becomes very, very important. Okay, WIPO treaty, please know the same. Okay, so why it is important? So yes, WIPO concludes new treaty to protect genetic resources as well as traditional knowledge. Okay, so here why this treaty is important, because now the developed countries have also recognized that for patent applications, you have to ensure the necessary financial gains that are there. It goes back to the society, or it goes back to the traditional society. Okay, so the developed countries have also recognized this, and that is why this treaty has been now adopted. Okay, so here it makes it mandatory for patent applications to disclose the country of origin or source of genetic resources. Okay, so if the claimed invention is based on those materials or associated traditional knowledge. So earlier, what used to happen, there were very few countries who who allowed this disclosing of information of country of origin. Even if it was there, it was not mandatory, but now it has been made mandatory. Okay, so here you can see the treaty will require contracting parties, including the developed world, to bring changes in their existing legal framework. Okay, so here genetic resources, when we talk about it, it can be related to medicinal plants, agriculture crops, animal breeds, all of it. Okay, so they have been recognized. Now, why is it important? It is important because for the first time, the connection between local communities and their genetic resources as well as traditional knowledge is recognized in the global IP community. Okay, so that is why this is very important. So the treaty will provide additional protection for India's genetic resources and traditional knowledge, and it is something that India has propagated for. Okay. Now, when you talk about WIPO, yeah, so as an organization, again, you should know certain aspects of it. Created in 1967, headquartered Geneva, Switzerland. India joined later, 1975. Okay, so again, India is one of the founding members. If it is asked, you have to be careful there, right? It is not so. One is 67, one is 1975, right? So please go through this aspect. Important topic, uh, very important. Okay, so already asked in test, but still it is relevant from current affairs. So I have put it in slides. Fine. Chalo. If this is clear, now we come to another initiative. Okay, this one is also important. That is Healthy Longevity Initiative. Okay, again, three statements given. Tell me which statements do you think might be correct here? Hmm. 23133 233. Okay, we are getting different answers. 3. Okay. All right. So let's see the content first and then we'll come back to the question. Okay. Yeah. So why is this important? Healthy Longevity Initiative. Okay. So it is an initiative of the World Bank. Okay. So generally, again, in UPSC, World Bank led initiatives, especially if it is targeting India, it becomes very important from your prelim standpoint. Okay. And here, another reason for reason for this is this initiative has been mentioned in a report which has been published by World Bank in 2024. Okay, and at the same time, because we are also seeing rise of non-communicable diseases. Okay, so India is currently filled with the same. So this initiative basically recognizes that we are transitioning towards an aging population. So it is very much necessary that you ensure better health outcomes in low and middle income countries like India. So here the target is specifically non-communicable diseases. How to target the rise of non-communicable diseases, right? So initiative led by World Bank, targeting India and mentioned in a recent report, right? Now focus on this, that is, what is this approach? Okay, so the approach is, yes, treat non-communicable diseases early, make health services affordable, provide long-term care options, and leverage the power of health data. So this is directly taken from World Bank website. Okay, so this is the approach, right? So healthcare has to be accessible, the nurses have to be competent, hospitals have to be well equipped, monitoring of patients should be happening in a systematic manner, and awareness of non-communicable diseases should also be there. So this is what this initiative is all about. Okay, so World Bank has also set up certain ambitious goals. Yes, so the aim is not just physical but also mental well-being. Okay, so focus on that aspect also. Yes, enhance physical, mental, and social well-being of people. Okay, decrease the number of people dying from avoidable diseases, and this is basically the objectives or the goals that World Bank has set for itself under this initiative. Fine. So now tell me, based on the content that you know, which statements are correct here? It's a global plan by United Nations. This is clearly wrong. This is World Bank. Okay, very important. Know the same. Okay, what about the second statement? The focus is on. Okay, so this is again false. We are not talking about communicable diseases. We are talking about an aging population. So that means we are talking about NCDs, right? And then finally, yes, third statement is correct. Okay. Yes, initiative of always not plain. Akhil, okay. It is always not plain, except for one or two instances in PYQs. You will not see. Generally, those statements are wrong. Okay. So that is there. Fine. Yeah. So come to the next initiative. Acha, next initiative also important. Cancer Moonshot Initiative. Again, two statements given. Which one do you think would be correct here? Hmm, both. Okay. Yeah, so you're right. Basically, one is wrong. Second is the correct statement, right? So here we are talking about cervical cancer. Yeah, so this initiative that is there, it is an initiative of the Quad. Okay, so that is launched by India, United States, Australia, and Japan. Okay, so the aim is to expand cervical cancer screening, especially to tackle human papillomavirus. Okay, so why are we focusing on the same? So current, if you remember in the budget also the government has mentioned about the vaccination campaign. That is, the Indian government now wants to ensure that adolescent teenage girls, especially in the age group of uh, less than 14 years, okay, they are given shots on the same human papillovirus. Okay, so why? The reason is this is the second most cause of cancer. Okay, that is after breast cancer for women in India. This is the second most form of cancer. So that is the reason this is important and an initiative in Quad. Okay, so just 2 years back, we had a vaccine also on the same. Okay, Servovax. So that also we will discuss. Right. So this initiative was announced on the sidelines of the Quad Leaders Summit. Okay. Now here the global, yeah. So the India, how India will contribute is India aims to ensure capacity building and at the same time provide funds for WHO's global initiative on digital health. Okay, so the aim is basically to ensure that the digital ecosystem is rightfully placed, especially in terms of screening of these uh, sexually transmitted infection. Okay, that is cervical cancer, right? Now, so this also you should know now, this is taken from, this is basically 5 or 6 months old news, but this was specifically mentioned in your budget. That is why we are covering the same, right? So the government is basically trying to roll out human papillomavirus vaccination campaign for adolescent girls, right? So it is, why it is famous, because it is India's first indigenously developed vaccine. Okay. Now it is first India's first HPV vaccine, Cervovac, and prevention of cervical cancer. So now here it is the outcome of, again, DBT is there, and BIRAC is also there. And who is the one which is implementing the same, or who is developing these vaccines? That is Serum Institute of India. Okay, so remember this aspect also, partnership of DBT and BIRAC. Fine. So it will be administered as a 2 dose for girls who are less than 14 years, and 3 dose for girls and women in the age group of 15 to 26. Okay. So it is a sexually transmitted viral infection. Okay. So remember this aspect. Now, when we talk about Cervovac, it is known as quadrivalent vaccine. The reason is it is able to combat 4 different strains of HPV here. Okay, and this vaccine can also be administered to men. And in India, this is a major cause of concern because it remains the second most common cancer in women. Okay, so remember this aspect, very important, right? So please go through this. Cervovac, indigenously developed. Government is trying to roll out the same. Important. Okay, go through this. Fine. Now, based on it, again, which statement would be correct here? There is. So the first one is definitely wrong. So this is an initiative of Quad focusing on specifically cervical cancer. Right? Yes, this is clear. Okay, now this is a sport related initiative. Now, again, you have seen in UPSC sometimes unique questions do come. And this one happening for the first time, a traditional sport in India. Okay, to be World Cup, again, going to be organized in New Delhi. Right. So here it's very unique. So that is why I just covered it. Okay. So your first Kho World Cup going to be held in New Delhi. Official tagline you should know, held by, yes, Kho Federation of India. Okay, just know the traditional sport. Fine. Okay, now come to the next one. This one is again important. That is Open Radio Access Network. Okay. So again, 3 statements given. Tell me which statements do you think might be correct here? One and three, one and two. Okay. Very good, Akhil. Good logic. Okay. All right. So let us see Open Radio Access Network. Now this one, where did I take it from? Directly ORF. Okay. So again, an important issue that is going on with respect to our security standpoint. Okay. So first of all, understand what is the backdrop of why we are focusing on this technology specifically. So when we talked about 5G networks, okay, 5G networks, basically the world realized soon that China basically has monopoly over these technologies, right? Especially because hardware and the software part of it, they are integrated, right? So that is why you might have seen in news also that many countries, especially US, also banned Huawei, right? Now India also basically try to phase out these equipments in the 5G, right? So the reason is, again, a security threat point is there, okay, and this might be a point of failure, okay, point of contact where there is failure. So in backdrop of that, we have something known as a open radio access network now. Okay, so here this is basically a modern approach to building and managing mobile networks, especially 5G. Okay, so here it opens the protocols and interfaces between various building blocks. So what does it mean? Basically, see here the difference between traditional and open RAN. So in traditional networks, the hardware and the software were integrated and they were provided by a single vendor. Okay, so because of which there was monopoly there, and at the same time they had the pricing power also. So the example is, I've just mentioned it here. It's like buying a TV, but you're able to use only apps from the TV manufacturer. Okay, whereas at the same time when you talk about open RAN, here the hardware and the software is separated. Okay, so at the same time different vendors can supply different parts. Okay, so you are able to install app on your TV regardless of the brand. Okay, so basic difference here. So that is the basic premise of open RAN. Fine. So key features are mentioned here: open interfaces, cost efficiency, innovation, and flexibility. Okay. Now the backdrop we have already seen. Key, what is the backdrop? The security point of is the challenge. So when we talk about open radio access network, we are basically focusing on creating the necessary infrastructure so as to ensure we are not dependent on one single entity. Okay, so 5G is basically referring to the next generation of mobile networks, but open radio access network focuses on infrastructure supporting these advancements. Okay, so it's an enabler of 5G, but at the same time, you should also remember ORAN extends beyond 5G mobiles also. That is, if you create this infrastructure, it will provide benefits for the previous generation of mobile technology also. It's not just limited to 5G. Okay, so right now, why are we focusing on this? Because right now, Reliance, that means Jio and Airtel, both of them are competing or asking government to develop this ORAN network or focusing on the same. Okay, so it's a major issue going on. So please cover this topic thoroughly. Okay, open radio access network. Fine. So now tell me here which statements would be correct here based on the same. Okay. So here the answer is yes. ORAN separates hardware and software, allowing different vendors to supply components using standardized interfaces. Okay. So here, Akhil, you're right. It is application restrictive is there. It does not support previous mobile technologies. Okay. At the same time, here also the comparison effect of it more cost efficient. Okay. So again, you have to think twice on the same. So here the answer is one. Fine. Okay, if this is clear. Okay, the next one is, this one is also important. Extra chromosomal DNA. Okay. Now here, this one I'll again post the link of this one also in the group. Give it a read. Okay, this is very important. The study is very, very important. The reason is it has basically changed the way in which we have interpreted how cell division happens. Okay, so this is very important. That article is very important. So I'll just put the article. You're supposed to read the same. Okay, after the class, right? So here, extra chromosomal DNA. Why it is in news? Because now we have recognized that this is the one of the major contributors of cancer, right? So first and the foremost thing is, what is extra chromosomal DNA? Okay, so generally what happens, your nucleus is there, you have 23 pairs of chromosomes. But during the interaction of chromosomes, especially during cell division, what happens, they may commit mistakes because of which some part of DNA is lost. Lost as in they form basically circular beds. Okay, they form a circular structure and they basically float freely inside the nucleus. Okay, so it may be happening during when chromosomes break or due to certain mistakes. Okay, so in both of the cases, what happens is these DNAs, they form a circular structure and they float freely inside the nucleus. Okay, now what the study has found out is while chromosomal DNA is fixed within specific regions of the cell, this extra chromosomal DNA is the one which is responsible for creating or formation of hubs. So it creates concentrated hubs where oncogenes happen. So what is oncogene? Basically, those are the genes which can cause cancer. Okay, so here these DNA they basically form into hubs, and finally in these hubs are where you find multiple copies of oncogenes here. Okay, so that is what is the news part of it. That is, as cells shift from DNA to mRNA for manufacturing of the proteins, what has been observed is during this process, so in the normal cell process, yeah, DNA to mRNA and finally to protein. But when extra chromosomal DNA is transcribed to mRNA, you find oncogenes here. Okay, their commonality increases, and it is one of the reasons for the cause of cancer. Okay, so here that is an important fact, that is an important aspect that you should know. Okay, at the same time, this study has also helped understand the fundamental shift in scientists' understanding of genetics. Okay, so earlier what used to happen, basically the intent is ki if all the genes that are there in the same chromosome, they are inherited together, and different chromosomes, they are basically distributed across uh, another chromosome. So this was known as Mendel's third law of independent assortment. Okay, but now based on the study of extra chromosomal DNA, what is happening is they are basically passed on as clusters to the daughter cells. So during the cell division, extra chromosomal DNA, they stick together and they are passed on to the next cells. Okay, so it is not that they are broken away. Okay, so what happens because of which cancer cells have an advantage here, because of which they get a favorable genetic combination and it leads to multiple cancerous growth. Okay, so this the researchers have now termed it as jackpot effect. Okay, so the basic understanding of cell division has also been challenged now by this study. Okay, so here basically the researchers have reported that the transcription process, especially from from DNA to mRNA, this is the one which is responsible for segregation of extra chromosomal DNA, which is responsible for the cancerous growth. Okay, so this is what the study has found out. So please, this one again, I have brought in only few content from the uh, article because everything I cannot put here, but I'll post that article and you're supposed to go and read that in detail. Okay, so here basically the premise is extra chromosomal DNA is the one which has been recognized as the one responsible for cancerous growth. Okay, and it is also responsible for drug resistance, causing the necessary drug resistance. Okay, so remember this important research. Please go through it. Fine. All right. So with that, I end the class for today. Okay. If you have any doubt, you can stay back. The rest of you can leave. The class for today is over. Okay. So today we have learned many important initiatives. Please go through them. Okay. They are very important. Even the last one. Fine. All right. So any doubt, you can stay back. The rest of you can leave. The class is over.